presenters of our next 3 Western Heritage Awards in the film category are no strangers to the industry themselves. Please welcome film and television producer and museum board member Lincoln Lageson, and actor, artist, and inductee into the Hall of Great Western Performers, Buck Taylor.
Thank you very much. It's a special treat for Lincoln and I to be invited here tonight and to be with all of you, our Canadian friends. And I know that Anson mentioned this before, that we're not to say anything that gets too political or anything like that. But cover your ears, Don Reeves. But it's no surprise that anyone that knows me knows how passionate I am concerning our fighting men and women in Iraq and Afghanistan and all over the world. It saddens me, but I have to mention this. The first fallen soldier fighting ISIS last November was an American fighting man, one of the best, an elite, Delta Force, Joshua Wheeler, from this great state of Oklahoma. God bless him. You all hold big prayers for all of our fighting men and women. Keep them in your prayers, because they are the ones that are keeping America great. That's right. This year's outstanding documentary, sponsored by Bob and Sylvia Slater, features 16 Mustangs, 4 men, 1 dream to ride border to border, Mexico to Canada, up the spine of the American West.
This documentary tracks 4 fresh out of college buddies as they take on wild Mustangs to be their trusted mounts and set out on an adventure of a lifetime. Let's take a look.
Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And sometimes that bad judgment can be pretty horrific.
I'm not ready to buy a house and get married and have kids yet. You know, I want to have fun and do some crazy adventure like this while I can.
Give them hell, Tommy!
It's a trip of self-discoveries.
We recently adopted less than 3,000. What do we do with the excess wild horses that we have to remove?
Do these horses have a right to be here? Yeah, absolutely they do.
To prove the worth of these Mustangs, we're going to adopt, train, and ride them 3,000 miles from Mexico to Canada through the wildest terrain in the American West.
Things are going to go wrong.
I'm planning on bringing him out.
Without down day, do whatever the hell I want. That was so much fun.
That goal of reaching the Canadian line isn't as powerful as the impact that going through this land has made on me.
Don't get below that horse.
Well, you
can do a lot of things, but you can't do this. And this is for crazy people, really.
I got to tell you, folks, my wife saw this movie and saved it for me and made me watch it, and I'm telling you, it's worth seeing. Have you seen it, Lincoln? It's an awesome movie, and congratulations to the outstanding documentary, Unbranded, and its producer, Ben Masters. Ben, come on up here.
I forgot what I was going to say. So just to let y'all know, everybody up here tonight that knew what they were going to say, they all cheated. Because these mirrors aren't mirrors. They're reflecting words that are on these screens. And they told me that I only had 60 seconds to talk. So I made my speech about 30 seconds, but nobody has stuck to the 60-second rule. So I'm just going to speak from the heart. So you can go ahead and just turn this off. So thank you everybody for coming. And we had this idea where we were just gonna adopt some wild Mustangs and ride them from Mexico to Canada. And whenever we started that idea, it seemed like a good one, and it turned out to be a good idea. But along the way, there was times where we questioned that. But everybody's done it. So I'm going to go ahead and say thanks to everybody that made it possible. We had 1,200 people that all gave what they could to make the film, and then we had a bunch of questionable filmmakers, actually trucks that we were going to get it done, which we ultimately did. But the real reason why the real thing I want to thank tonight is I think that it is pretty cool. I mean, it's really amazing that in the year 2013, you can still adopt wild Mustangs and ride them from Mexico to Canada on a route that is pretty much entirely open space with very few fences, with very few roads. And, there's not a lot of countries that still have that. And it still blows people's minds that it's still possible. It blew my mind. I mean, I've always heard of the West and the vast open spaces. I'm from Texas. But it wasn't really until we began the trip that I really appreciated the size of it, the grandeur of it, of, going through it over the course of 5 months in Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. And it was really, really cool to see the landscapes unfold as we went through, the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone and Glacier and the Bob. And man, there's no other place like it. I've gotten to visit other places in the world, and I'd rather go on a pack trip in Yellowstone than do anything in life, I think. But y'all are making me nervous. Stop. And I think that the whole idea of Western heritage, what is that? Is it the ability to throw a good rope or ride a horse that doesn't want to get ridden, or opening the door or whatever? But I really think that what Western heritage is, what the whole Western idea is open space and freedom. and to look out, you know, across a landscape and, you know, just see nature the way it is. You know, it's really hard to improve upon. And I just want to dedicate this Wrangler Award to all of the ranchers and the land managers and the conservationists in the past 150 or 200 years that have seen the beauty and the treasure in leaving our big landscapes wide open and beautiful for us to have today. So thank you very much. You know, conservation and rangeland management is not something to be taken lightly, and I do not take this award lightly, so I'm going to get off now. But thank you all so much for coming.
This year's outstanding television feature film is a History Channel 10-hour miniseries based on the Texas Revolution against Mexico and shows how the Texas Rangers were created.
In 1836, west of the Mississippi was considered untamed land, and the Texas frontier was viewed as wilderness. But this was a time of bravery and willingness to die for what one believed in. When the smoke cleared, the Texas flag stood tall and victorious, claiming a place in history for all eternity. So let's take a look at this award-winning film.
You think we ought to attack 5,000 Mexican veterans supported by artillery?
We do have that element of surprise, sir.
I need a volunteer to infiltrate Santa Anna's camp.
¡Viva México!
Rally the Rangers.
Sponsored by Gordon and Susie Whitener, the award for Outstanding Television Feature Film is Texas Rising. Accepting the award is writer and producer Daryl Fetty and co-producer David Wilkinson.
I just met this kid, Ben Master. Ben, he looked at me when he was coming on, and he says, there's a lot of people out there. Ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a cowboy. Growing up in Balls Gap, West Virginia, we had a lot of cows. It just wasn't the same, you know. So it was sometime after I realized that I didn't have quite what it takes to be a real cowboy. I loaded up my Rattletrap Olds 98 with a guitar, a sleeping bag, and my Hatfields and McCoy's girlfriend. At the time, her mama was a Hatfield, her father was a McCoy. And I rode from the hills of West Virginia to the beaches of California to be a Hollywood cowboy. Now, the problem with that was that all those great movie and TV westerns I'd grown up with were dying out. I managed to land several acting roles and a few that were left. I even got to star as a quick-draw gunslinger with Doug McClure and William Shatner in a 1970s TV western that faded away about as quickly as my childhood dreams. So it was around that time I first started writing about the Old West, although not nearly to the extent as my big Texas partner here, David Marion Wilkinson, award-winning author and historical novelist Anyway, the point of my little indulgent backstory is to say after all these years how much just being here at this Cowboy and Western Heritage event means to me. David's and my partner and boss, executive producer Leslie Greif, couldn't be here tonight as he's in Memphis shooting his new series for CMT called $1 Million Quartet about the beginnings of rock and roll with Sun Records. So he sent me a few remarks to read on his behalf. Think Factory Media is thrilled to be recognized for the second time at the Western Heritage Awards. The first time was in 2013 for Hatfields and McCoy, starring Kevin Costner and Bill Paxton, among others, which, thanks. In addition to the Wrangler, garnered nods from the Producers Guild, the Writers Guild, the Golden Globes, as well as 16 Emmy nominations and 5 Emmy Awards. Today, we proudly accept the Wrangler for Texas Rising, another tremendous success for the History Network. It's about the story of Texas War for Independence and the beginnings of the Texas Rangers. It's a great bookend to Leslie's career, which he co-created TV's Walker Texas Rangers. Leslie said, as a teenager working as an NBC page, I met my hero, John Wayne. He offered an inspirational yet plain-spoken piece of advice to an aspiring young producer. He said, don't dream about making a Western. Go out and make one. Almost 40 years later, we found ourselves in Durango, Mexico, on John Wayne's ranch, where he filmed The Sons of Katie Elder, The War Wagon, and at least 5 other classic John Wayne Westerns. On behalf of the History Network, Think Factory Media, executive producer Leslie Greif, producers Barry Berg, Herb Nanis, Jose Ludlow, director Roland Joffe, stars Bill Paxton, Ray Liotta, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Cynthia Day Robinson, Olivier Martinez, Thomas Jane, Brendan Fraser, Chris Christopherson, and the rest of our stellar cast, as well as the fabulous Mexican and international crew, and myself and co-producer David Marion Wilkinson's, whose contributions are much greater than his title would indicate. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for this acknowledgement. It's an honor that we all share together.
I'm going to keep our remarks very brief. I just want to say for 20 years I've tried to win this award any way I could with my novels. I couldn't hit a lick up here in Oklahoma City. And then I wrote Swing for these guys, and we hit. I was just stunned, and I want you to know how much I appreciate, and I'm honored to be a part of this organization and what you do for not just me, but in this production, but all these other writers that mentored me when I was younger. Elmer Kelton, Laura Nesselman, Robert J. Connolly there in Tahlequah, Johnny D. Boggs in Albuquerque, and on and on. Those guys are my friends and my teachers, and I'm honored to be here in that tradition with them this evening. Thank you very much.
You know, I have to echo those words of Darrell. I remember when I was 4 years old, I went and visited my dad on a movie set there in Hollywood, where he was making cowboy movies with Russell Lucky Hayden. And my mom and daddy, they dressed me as a cowboy. I had hat, boots, chaps, cross-draw holster. And I had a photograph taken of me when I was a little boy in that setting. And I'll never forget it. It's been with me all my life. And I venture to say that pretty near each and every one of you out there, when you were young, wore a cowboy hat, rode a stick horse, went to a cowboy movie, heard a great Western song like Home on the Range. They're memories, great, great memories. And that's what makes this museum so very, very, very special. We keep those memories alive.
Is that right?